After personally struggling for several years with addictions to nicotine, cannabis, stimulants, and adult media content, I've come to realize that quitting in and of itself can become a form of self-torture. Quitting and the process of trying to stop can become torturous. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to avoid that pitfall. If you're new to the channel, my name's Dr. Frank. I'm the founder of AddictionMindset recovery coaching programs. And my goal is to make sobriety accessible to everyone. And if you want to learn more about our free and paid program options and products, be sure to check out the links in the pinned comment in the video description if you enjoyed today's video. So if you're anything like me, there's been a chance or a moment in your life where you've said, okay, I'm going to quit smoking weed, and then you quit for a few days, and then you go back to using it. I'm going to quit vaping, I'm going to quit chewing tobacco, and then you stop for a week, a month, and then you go back to doing it again. And this cycle continues over and over and over. Every week, every day, for me in some cases, every hour, I was restarting my quitting process, quitting weed, okay? Over time, this becomes a form of torture. This indecision that we have. Indecision becomes torturous. And not only is it torturous, but it can also dramatically erode a person's confidence and self-value, if you will. So what would happen is I would become very indecisive about quitting, and just being indecisive throughout the course of a day, a month, a year, would become extremely fatiguing. Like, physically, psychologically, you would just start to get drained. And now, I'm not so much even focused on addiction and the side effects of addiction and the consequences of all that I'm trying to balance. But now, I'm constantly in my head saying, I'm gonna quit, I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna stop, I'm not gonna stop. I'm taking valuable energy and value headspace away from my relationships, from my finances, from my faith practice, from my entrepreneurship goals and my other businesses, right? Trying to maintain that cycle of indecision, constant indecision, is exhausting, and it eventually becomes a form of torture. It really feels that way if you've been stuck in this cycle before. And there's good news, there's a way to end it. And the way to end that form of torture is to make a decision. And I'll talk to people sometimes in our coaching programs, and one of my goals is to figure out, does this person or does this person not want to stop consuming cannabis? Is this advantageous or disadvantageous to them? And I try and help them come to their own conclusion on that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell that person, you have to make up your mind. Because if you're going to keep smoking weed, and you're going to constantly be thinking about quitting weed, you're never going to find any enjoyment in continuing to smoke, because this is always going to be this ongoing cycle of I'm quitting, I'm not quitting, I'm quitting, I'm not quitting, and that's torture. If you're going to continue to smoke weed or consume cannabis, and figure out how to do that happily. Because doing that happily is going to be a lot less draining than doing that hesitantly, than doing that indecisively. Whether you're going to stop or not stop, all I'm asking you to do is be decisive in your decision for the time being. Now, in both cases, you have free will. You have the power of choice. You can change your mind come another time, another day, a change of environment, a change of lifestyle. You can either go back to smoking, you can quit it another time, you can moderate. That's up to you. That's free will. That's the power of choice. And we all have that, okay? I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it in addiction, but we do. We do have that. That is one benefit or one positive of this conversation. You have the power of free choice. You have the power of free will. But decide. Start practicing being decisive. Now, I'll tell you, for me, and I've talked about this in many other videos, for me, that was one of the worst side effects of cannabis addiction, of nicotine addiction, of, adult media content addiction. The back and forth, the back and forth, the back and forth. And this is coming from myself, a person who didn't want to moderate. And I've talked about why I don't want to moderate in my other videos. I'll link those at the end of today's video, okay? but I wasn't trying to get to a place of moderation. I wanted this stuff out of my life once and for all. And when I was busy being indecisive, literally torturing myself, it started to creep or rot or spill into other areas of my life. I found myself being indecisive about business decisions. I found myself being indecisive about fitness regimens and faith practices and my relationships, and like significant relationships. I was becoming indecisive about them. And this indecision was spilling into other areas of my life. And it started with my indecision and getting used to being indecisive throughout my addiction recovery process. This is where quitting drugs can become very, very damaging. If you have two people smoking a cigarette and one person's smoking it and they can't make up their mind whether or not they want to quit, that's person A. That cigarette sucks. There's no enjoyment of it. And once you get there, I can almost guarantee you, if you've been going through this for a long time with addiction to cannabis or other drugs, once you're in that mindset of, I decided I want to stop, I decided I want to quit, it is literally almost impossible to ever relive whatever degree of enjoyment you once had from that drug. It's almost impossible to ever get back to that place. Now let's take, and a lot of people are trying to recreate a past experience, a past emotion, a past feeling that is now impossible to recreate because there's been that transition in mindset. The transition from, I'm enjoying this cigarette, I'm enjoying this joint, I'm enjoying this edible, to I don't want to be doing this anymore. So now every time I do it, it just feels like torture. Person B, let's say they're smoking the cigarette and they have no thoughts about quitting. They're very decisive that they want to continue smoking. Person B is going to actually truly be enjoying that cigarette, be enjoying that joint, be enjoying that edible, whatever it is they're consuming. Because in their mind, there's no cognitive dissonance. There's no two separate thought processes going on. And I would argue that even though person B is still smoking the cigarette, still smoking the joint, the fact that they don't have all the stress that person A is dealing with, which is, should I quit? Should I not quit? Should I smoke? Should I not smoke? I'm going to go buy a pack of cigarettes, smoke 3, throw it out my car window, and then do this again multiple times a day, something I've done before in the past. Person B is probably going to outlive person A because they're not stressed about the fact that they have a substance use disorder or an addiction, because they don't care, because they're doing it willingly for the time being. Whereas person A is tied up in their head, they're stressed to high hell, they feel like they can't make a decision, and they just are in this terrible cycle where they're not even enjoying the cigarette, the joint, the edible, the alcohol, whatever it is they're consuming, okay? Now, I want you guys to walk away from this video hopefully being decisive. And listen, if you leave today and you decide right now for the time being you're going to continue smoking weed, that's fine, because you can always revisit that at another point in time. Your lifestyle might change, your environment might change, your finances might change, your circumstances might change. Now, I would argue that quitting weed is what's going to be the catalyst to change those things, but those things might change, and you might find at another point in the future that quitting cannabis seems more attainable than it does right now. So don't think just because you're decisive about something doesn't mean that you can't change your mind based on how your environment, your finances, your relationships, based on how those things trend at another point in time in the future. But I don't want you to be indecisive. Start to practice making a decision and being decisive and firm in those decisions, because whether you continue to smoke or you decide to quit, which is what I would recommend doing, if that's what you're trying to do, I would recommend, I would do that, because you're going to be much happier either way. You're going to be much happier in your recovery if you're decisive to stop using cannabis, or if you decide to continue using it, you're going to be much happier continuing to use it. You got to get rid of all this back and forth conversation in between your two ears, in between your head, right? In the head space. I hope this video helped you guys out. I'm going to put some videos about moderation right up here that you can go watch if you want, and why I choose not to moderate. But if you need help quitting and you want to do something that's decisive, download some of our free guides, book a one-on-one coaching call, or check out our Kick It, Crave Less Chewing Gum supplements it's a supplement designed, it's a chewing gum with ashwagandha and N-acetylcysteine to help you quit using nicotine, quit smoking weed, quit vaping. We're the only people in the world to make that supplement, and you can find it right below on YouTube Shopping or with the links in the pinned comment. Until next time.